We are The Table, and we're so glad that you have taken time out of your week to join us. Welcome to our segment, In 5, where it is our hope that we will guide you forward in life and faith in the next 5 minutes. If you would like to take this conversation deeper and discover from a faith perspective, head on over to thetablejoliet.org.
Hey friends, welcome to episode 18, where our goal is to move you forward in life and faith in less than 5 minutes. Today, I want to begin talking about this idea of being influential. I believe deep down that each of us have a purpose, there's a reason why we're here, and you are meant to have influence in your life. So the first question I want you to ask is, deep down, first thing that comes to mind, do I have influence? That's a good question to ask. And I also want to say this, you may not feel like your life is that important, but I want to show you something pretty cool today. And I want to introduce to you to this wonderful lady whose picture is going to come up on the screen. But I also want to introduce to you people that you probably are really familiar with. And so as you look at these two pictures, whatever time it is for you this morning or this evening, the question I want to ask you is, who has more influence? One of the things that I think is a problem for us today is that we have hijacked the idea of what influence is all about. So what's interesting is when you look up the word influencers, these are people, it's someone or something which has influence. When you look up the word influential, it says people, someone or something that has influence. And I want you to see the difference. Influencers project their influence onto other people. People who are influential they just have within their nature influence. One is more concerned about followers, the other is worth following. One is concerned about numbers and metrics, and the other is concerned about names. Influencers like to tell you how much influence they have. People who are influential care about passing it down. And I'm trying to make this point that influence today has been more about platforms than it has about people. But I want to show you something, right? We think so often that if we have all these different avenues or all these different platforms to become an influencer, will make a difference. But let me just show you this. If you were to take your hand and you were to make each of these your platforms that you perceive as influence, so Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, social media. Can we really count Zoom? Can we really count Zoom as a probably not. Anyway, here, just make my point with you. Let's say that this piece of paper is the world. What is interesting is it doesn't matter who's holding this or how much pressure I put on it. With all these platforms, I actually can't break through this piece of paper. Because I am spread so far, my influence is spread so far on all these different platforms, it's actually really hard for me to make a difference. What is so cool though about my grandmother is this. When you think about grandparents, you don't think about people who have lots of influence. You think about rockers, you think about retirement, you think about, maybe Florida. I don't know what you think about when you think about grandparents. But here's the thing. When I'm thinking about her, we would say, no, she doesn't have as much influence as the Kardashians. She doesn't have a profound impact like they do. But here's the one thing I know about her. She was concerned about people. She was concerned about people. And if you focus on just one thing, if you were to just focus on people, if the world, right, if this was your world and one person, hypothetically speaking, it's a lot easier to push this through and make an impact. When I think about my grandmother, what I think about is that she was more concerned with people than she was about platforms. I know that the Kardashians have millions of followers and everybody follows them on Instagram and watches their shows, and that's amazing. I don't know that anybody's life, I don't know that anybody would say their life is better because of it. But what I do know is that they have all these amazing platforms, but do they really have influence? When I think about my grandmother, she didn't have social media. She had 0 followers on Instagram, Facebook. I don't even know if she had a Facebook account. But what I know is that she was invested in people. She was invested in people. It was the people who were in front of her that she began to pour her life into day in and day out that made a difference. And so can I just tell you today, I know that seems common sense, but for many of us, we're so busy looking at all the platforms and how we can have an influence. And I'm just going to tell you now, if you have to tell people that you have influence, you don't have influence. I would say the greatest difference you can make is by looking at the people in front of you and pouring your life into them one-on-one. There's somebody there in your life who always needs you to listen. There's somebody who always needs your help and your advice. There's always somebody in your life who needs you to be present for them. And so can I just say today, always choose people over platforms. Because when you invest in people, when you make a difference in a life, you have no clue the ripple effect that will have throughout history. And that's why you're influential. All right, friends, we'll see you next week for our segment at Vin 5.